This story has its beginnings early last century at Radium Hill in South Australia. It was the nation's first uranium mine and eventually became a full-scale commercial operation. The uranium ore was then transported to Sydney to a specially built refinery at Hunters Hill. The site operated between 1911 and 1915, and its legacy remains.
There was about 2,000 tonnes of uranium ore that was processed at a reasonable grade, so we know that it has low-level radioactivity in it, so it has to be considered as low-level radioactive waste. There's no other way to sugarcoat that.
After the refinery closed, the area was redeveloped for residential use, but over the years questions were raised about contamination. But the plan to deal with what's classified as restricted solid waste has infuriated residents in Sydney's west.
Plans to move toxic waste from Hunters Hill to near Kemps Creek have caused outrage.
I rise to express my outrage with the very poor treatment that the residents of Western Sydney are receiving from the New South Wales Liberals.
Residents in Western Sydney say they feel betrayed by the Premier over plans to dump hazardous waste in their neighbourhood.
While Hunters Hill residents might be relieved, the people at Kemps Creek in Sydney's outer west won't want contaminated soil from the site dumped in their area. But the New South...
Mr O'Farrell gave clear commitments before the election that he would not be sending this waste out to Western Sydney. In fact, I have a letter...
Before the election, he said that this was dangerous. In his own words, he said it was a threat to the safety of people in Western Sydney, and now suddenly he has to have us believe that this is safe.
To dump it in Western Sydney is stupid, it's a threat. It is hazardous radioactive waste. 7 times some of it the acceptable limit. It needs to be put in an appropriate facility.
And this radioactive waste, if it wasn't a problem, we'd leave it where it was. But we all know that it is a problem. It's got to leave Hunters Hill, and it doesn't belong in any possible place where anyone could live. And it's about time that this government recognises that the people of Western Sydney will no longer be taken for granted. It's not even industrial waste. It's hazardous. Everyone knows it. Sinclair Knight Mertz report from the Health Department in 1987 identified 37 samples from the Hunters Hill site from a test of 25 sites where radiation exceeded the 100 becquerels per gram limit. In one sample, there was 7 times the limit. This is the stuff that we want to put in the backyard of Western Sydney. This is the stuff that we want people in Western Sydney to live next to. This is supposed to be...
To legally take this waste product in this facility, they've had to reclassify it so it's acceptable under the licence. It's more spin upon more spin.
Despite warnings, Finance Minister Greg Pearce last month told Parliament none of the waste was hazardous and all of it is expected to go to Kemps Creek.
This plan here is the right plan. They will be safe if this plan is approved. There will be no change whatsoever to the people of Western Sydney.
The State Liberal member, the member for Mulgoa, who up until Saturday also happened to be a councillor on the Penrith City Council, she got up in the council after having run a campaign against this before the state election, where she said such things as, the people of Western Sydney are not the dumping ground for Sydney, especially for radioactive waste. It is unsafe waste material and should not be dumped in our community. Well, she got up at a recent council meeting and defended this plan to send it out west. And what did she say? She told the people of Western Sydney that the amount of radioactivity in this waste was the same level of radioactivity as you would experience in eating a banana. Well, Deputy Speaker, the member for Mulgoa has gone bananas.
The amount of radioactive material there is likely to be the same as in a banana.
Good evening. 7 News can tonight reveal serious new warnings about radioactive waste which the state government wants to dump in Western Sydney. Tests have found the contaminated soil buried near the harbour would need radiation monitoring for 300 years if it's sent to Kemps Creek.
These empty homes remain hotspots of radioactive waste headed for Western Sydney.
The people of Penrith just won't have this. They want to say, and they're telling me, that we won't have this radioactive waste in our backyard.
Nuclear scientists tested the Hunters Hill site, finding radioactive material was detected at varying concentrations across the area. Another report shows monitoring would need to be implemented at the disposal site for at least 300 years.
Well, what my local community is telling me is if it's too dangerous for Hunters Hill, it's absolutely not safe enough for us in Kemps Creek. So we'll be fighting this every step of the way to ensure it does not come to our community.
Now, Barry O'Farrell says this is just soil. Just soil. Well, I have a few questions. If it's just soil, why does it need to be moved? Leave it there. Leave it there.
Western Sydney residents are calling it a toxic betrayal of their trust.
We don't want it here. No one is going to accept it here.
I'm feeling like a volcano. I'm just about to explode with the state government.
It is all radioactive waste. They admitted that at the public meeting.
I represent the people that are here concerned about this issue, also the thousands and thousands of people that aren't here who are concerned about this issue, and they're not here because it's very conveniently being exhibited during the Christmas New Year period.
You've approached every state in the country. They've said no. You've approached international markets. They've said no. Why us?
It's an outrage. People are angry and they've got every reason to be angry.
Our community is pretty angry, and rightly so. We were lied to.
Kemps Creek residents say they'll be staging rallies and keeping up the fight.
I'm at Kemps Creek today, and I have with me hundreds of submissions signed by local residents in our fight against the New South Wales Liberals' plan to dump radioactive waste here in our local community. Before the last election, the New South Wales Liberals promised that they wouldn't do this. Now they've broken that promise. Let's be clear about this. The waste that they intend to ship out here, thousands of tonnes of waste, it currently sits in a site at Hunters Hill, and that waste has been linked to the emergence of cancer clusters in that community. And now they want to ship that out to Western Sydney. I've got two questions for the New South Wales Liberals. One, why have you broken your promise and betrayed the people of Western Sydney? And two, if this material is safe enough for Western Sydney, why is it that it's so dangerous to the people of the North Shore?